football. She uncovers what the sport represents and why we're so drawn to it. And she'll challenge us to hold two competing views in our minds at once, which she argues will lead us to preserve this beloved game. Arden is advised by Mr. Scott Ingham. Please help me welcome Arden.
Welcome to the glorious Death Valley. After listening to the LSU band and seeing the Tigers on the field, imagine that we're at the LSU-Alabama game and we feel a rush of adrenaline when the clock starts. Tap into the feelings of the LSU-Alabama game on November 5th, 2022, when LSU scored the touchdown after Jaden Daniels broke the tackle and ran the Alabama end zone. Fans went wild, causing the Richter scale to go off not once, but twice, once from the touchdown and then again from the two-point conversion that secured the Tigers' win. Football creates a strong sense of community at all levels, and we need it for our collective interest. Have you ever found yourself saying something like, "We might actually win this," or "We need to start playing better"? Most fans have never stepped on the field, and it might seem silly, but something as small as a word choice portrays how in it fans really are. In fact, our brains have mirror neurons that allow a person to understand points of view outside their own and respond to actions observed in others. Fans bask in reflective glory because there is some point of contact at the neural level between a team's performance and our own self-esteem. When a team is winning or playing well, our brains release dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter that regulates our feelings of pleasure, satisfaction, and motivation. When a team is losing, our brains release cortisol, which is one of the body's main stress hormones controlling our feelings of mood and fear. Football creates a strong sense of community at all levels. The strong sense of community we feel when it comes to football is likely made up of our memories like tailgating at LSU, nights at Death Valley, or Joe Burrow's Heisman speech. It takes a community to set off a Richter scale 4 times in Tiger Stadium, and as many of y'all probably remember, in 2019, the LSU football team motto was "One team, one heartbeat," which certainly reached the fans. But beyond our collective feelings, at the psychological level, there's more to the story. Football can symbolize the American dream that most of us grow up striving for. The American dream is a model for Americans and people around the world that sets the values and goals that many people try to achieve. James Truslow Adams was a writer and historian that wrote the Epic of America that said, "Dream of a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to ability or achievement." So basically, Americans want a better life full of opportunities. Football capitalizes on this idea in a pretty interesting way. It takes ability and achievement to get to the college or NFL level on the big stage, while also tapping into the ideas of individualism, which is the idea that individuals work their way up as an independent, self-reliant person that is free to take action on their own lives. This is why we love the stories of the underdogs, because they worked harder than everyone else and fought for themselves until the end. We see football players living the American dream, and we reflect on our own lives. Football is more than just a game to us. We see the strong sense of community that it brings, and we reflect on our own futures. When we think of our dreams after college, we might think of the smell of the grill as our friends and family are surrounding us as we watch the football game. We might think of our kids in cute little cheer uniforms or football jerseys, and to many of us, football plays a part in our American dream vision. But there are individual risks for the individual player's health that should be acknowledged, and when it comes to football, we favor the interest of the public over the individual. So, football is all great. Actually, it's not. There's a dark side to the game. Vincent Jackson, Paul Oliver, and Tyler Sash are a few examples of retired football players that have many things in common. They played in the NFL, they had a family, and they passed away before the age of 40. They were unable to experience those fulfilling moments in their lives and in the lives of their families, even while living many people's models for the American dream. They actually had something else in common that I bet no one else thought of. CTE was discovered in all of these men's brains. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, is a progressive degenerative disease of the brain found in people with a history of head trauma, often athletes, including symptomatic concussions as well as concussions with no symptoms after hits to the head. CTE is rare, complex, and not well understood. As you can imagine, football has a lot of concussions, especially ones at the NFL level. CTE has been found in the brains of more than 315 former NFL players and around 24 who passed in their 20s and 30s. Research has found that cognitive changes from CTE can include difficulty thinking, memory loss, and problems carrying out tasks. In most cases, former NFL players that were diagnosed with CTE after death were experiencing behavioral changes. I want to warn y'all that these stories show the dark side of the game, and they may be hard to hear, but they show the extent of what this disease can do to people's behavior and to people's lives. The first example is Paul Oliver. He had been unexpectedly out of the league following the 2011 season on the San Diego Chargers. Unfortunately, in 2013, 2 years after his career ended, he shot himself in front of his children after going upstairs after an argument with his wife. His uncle believed that he was experiencing noticeable changes in behavior during his life. The second example is Mike Webster. He had a heart attack at the age of 50 and passed away in 2002. It was the first CTE case discovered in the past couple of decades and the first case to gain national attention. After his career ended, he was homeless and living in his truck. He was experiencing noticeable changes in behavior, and it was like he was losing himself. The problem with the disease and what makes it so scary is that there's no way, as of now, to diagnose CTE during life. Research, media coverage, and doctors pushing for change have got us where we are today. We cannot take for granted the players on the field or the research available that keeps the game going. But fans have their own ideas of what rule changes are worth the change and the others that are not, even when they have historically followed the research available at the time. The story of football shows us that our collective interests outweigh individual risk. We have kept a dangerous game, and we cannot take for granted the individual risk that keeps the cultural phenomenon alive. We cannot sweep the physical risk under the rug. We have to be open to reforms to keep the heart of the game intact, but also protect the players. Research, media coverage, and doctors pushing for change, Research, rule changes, and new technology are our hopes for a safer future. In hopes of one day diagnosing CTE in live patients, UCLA researchers are studying a molecular tracer called FDDMP, which binds to abnormal proteins in the brain. The PET scans compared the brains of healthy brains, Alzheimer's patients, military personnel, and football players who sustained at least one concussion. The scans pointed to the extent and location of abnormal proteins in the brain, which could be used to diagnose and study the development of CTE. Research and rule changes are improving, but you could also have an impact. Yes, you could all say, well, they chose this path for themselves. They know what they signed up for, which is true. And even Joe Burrow said that everybody knows the profession that we do is a dangerous game. That's always a possibility. But we have a responsibility as fans to protect the game we love and the players on the field. I'm sure many of you are thinking of when Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field from cardiac arrest. Fans, players, and coaches were solely focused on his health and life before even thinking about restarting the game. The whole nation stayed engaged, sending prayers and watching updates concerned about his health, which is an example of what we should do. As you look out at a football field, think about when you see your friends on the field at a time of injury. We know the players on the field, and we care when they get hurt over any football game. Future research and new technology should be what we hope for, not what we criticize as looking funny or unnecessary for the game, because that is the balance that we should long for. Football is closely bound to our American values, and we want to protect it. We should strive for that same care and support for our players' health every time we see their health, or in this case, life at risk. Thank you.